Okay, I'm gonna get into the callers. First off, I want to say that I am not guaranteeing that any of these callers will avoid posting scams on their page. They may post scams. They may post 10 bad calls in a row where you just lose, lose, lose. Overall, some of them have pretty good potential to make profit, and some of them should be followed a lot closer than others. And they all kind of have their own purposes. Like some are good at calling serious plays, like longer term plays, and some are good at catching degens that nobody else really finds. They find their plays by like tracking wallets or something, whereas this guy finds it by getting DM'd. And they all have their own sources and ways. I'm not guaranteeing any of them will do you well and you'll make money off them. You have to be able to use your own filter and go through and put the research and work in to make sure, okay, this play is good. But the one thing I'll say is just get a feel for each of these callers and like what they type when you're factoring in your decision making. Just be like, okay, well, Venom said this is like a really good team and blah blah blah, so maybe even though the chart's scary, I should still buy it and trust that it's safe and good. And you know what? He might be wrong sometimes. He might vouch for a good team like 3 times in a row and they all suck, but eventually he'll hit one with like a 10x that you should have listened to. It's all about thinking about things long term and objectively when assessing these callers. Either way, we'll get into it. I mean, Rhino's rugs, complete degen channel, barely calls anything. I'm just hoping like one day he'll post something somewhat early and have a good eye, and I'll think it looks good too, and I'll make some money off it, but hardly posts. Same with Steezy's Gems, exact same feeling. Very degen, very gambly, barely posts. But if something looks good, then maybe I can catch something here that many people won't have their eyes on. Stonky Gems kind of gets some insider stuff going that most people don't have their eyes on. He's more of like a botter and like tracking wallets and stuff like that and finding some good potential. Shyroshi, I like this channel so far. Pretty new follower to it, but in the few months I followed, he's done a pretty good job. Venom Gambles, can't sleep on this one. Definitely one of the best overall long term. Definitely like what I say with everyone, read what they're saying. Because he's like me, he'll tell you quite a bit of what he knows. And like me reading his posts, I'll have an idea which ones seem better than the others. Kino and Top Dog, I'm too new to them to really go over. Ryoshi's Gems, this I'm kind of too new to this one as well. I mean, Bossy, not really that bullish on, but I mean, good to have like a bunch of different sources to pull information from. Like any of the other channels I've gone over, I'll just use my own filtering process, probably not pay attention to a lot of them, but certain ones might catch my eye or something. XeroDarkCalls, I'd say not bad. Sometimes more on the degen side. He knows some good people and teams. He could probably throw a good call every now and then. Shrimpy, I think he's slowly getting back into the game. Sometimes he's been alright in the past, so once again, just expanding my horizons, throwing as many channels as I can out there. Buck's Firehouse, once again, he's more BSC oriented. Just add it to the theme. Like all these channels kind of are the same. They don't post that often, more like lower caps. Sometimes I'm doing the filtering. I'll be like, okay, that call from Buck looks good. Maybe I'll explore that a little bit. Or Buck says this team's really good. I feel safe that it should be able to hit like 150K and they should put some effort into it and they have a good idea, okay, maybe I'll end up buying it. Same with the caller. I think he's pretty good, but he doesn't post much anymore. I'd say when I used to support him and pump him up, he was doing better. He's got his own project now, so he's a little more focused on that. Gems of Raw is okay. I'll give him credit because he was pushing bank really hard and it's done great. Because of how hard he was pushing it, I consider buying it and calling it. I'm like, this guy's throwing a lot of rep on this one, and it's done good, so I'll give him credit for that one. Overall, I'd still say a little bit more on the degen side. Greco, sometimes he gets on a little bit of a roll. I never really made money from any of his calls. Sometimes the potential has been there. Normally not, I'd say. Venom's live chat, main channel. I mean, you can find some good pre-sales and pre-launch calls there. You can tell a lot of these are paid shills and doesn't really care much. But then every now and then, he'll seem like a little more bullish on something. This guy's barely posted in forever. People said he's super degen, and I'll admit, he was kind of degen for a bit and didn't make some great calls, but he did catch some mooners that not many people caught. So I kind of had him on here as like a higher risk shot in the dark kind of guy. Not all these guys are like me and have tons of fake channels, so you guys should be able to find all the real channels here. Memecoin Mansion was doing alright, but Tribot seemed to have been gone. Maybe he'll come back. Kingdom, this is a pretty solid, longer term, higher cap plays. I think they're one of like the 4 channels that I'd say have been like as consistent and solid as me and Venom. And then Kingdom and Maythous, I think, are like the only four I can think of that have been near the top for like a long period of time and been pretty consistent. I take me and Venom over anyone. I don't care what anyone says. And I think I might even take me over Venom. I'd have to get real deep into it and really do some research on who did better, but either way we both did great. And anyone who says otherwise is pretty stupid. Degen Seals has been impressing me lately. They were a little degen to start. I think they're doing better. It's not at all because of Sully. It's all Wakami and this princess chick and Faded. They've been doing pretty well. Dylan's Dirty Diary, he's been doing pretty solid. Now he's posting on my page as well sometimes. I shouted him out quite a few times before because I liked his style. He seemed pretty based. But he got a little degenny for me, but he's gotten away from that in the last 2-3 months. And just supporting a lot of higher cap plays. You still have lots of people fudding him in my comments section, but you know what? They fud me too, and they're completely wrong about that, so I think he does a good job. I mean, God Calls is alright. He seems like he kind of just bounces in for like a week and then leaves again. Sometimes he's supporting some good calls, like he'll get in a row, on a roll for like a week. Achilles, sometimes I follow, sometimes I don't. I filter into there too, but I like Achilles. 0x trading, newer to here. This might be the one that caught the good play last night at 14k. Spaceman Callz, definitely more on the degen side, but I will admit he's had a couple okay ones recently, but usually they'll kind of top out at like 500k, sometimes 300k. So a little bit more on the degen side, but he's hit a couple decent ones. Maestro, I've been saying, is not bad. Definitely on the degen side. Definitely posts a lot. One of those ones where you just have to filter yourself. Obviously not by every call, but try to pick and choose. In Apes We Trust, he's been he didn't post for a while, but I'd say overall long term, he's pretty good at getting like medium X's, like 3x to 10x. He's pretty solid at getting those. Recently on the stream, one of the only calls I reviewed of the day, I did a pre-launch call because I found it on here. And he said it was safe, and it ended up being a pretty great call on NFT. If you guys remember that one, I put it here live on stream, and some people bought and made quite a lot of money on it. Shyroshis Gambles, high risk, gonna be some shit ones if you do good filtering. There is some good ones on there too, for sure. Landon is pretty like connected in the space, so he's been doing pretty good job. He gets in with some good teams, gets some plays early. He can like post on quite a few pages, so he's connected. Pow's been pretty good lately too. I feel like people overhype him a little bit from what I've seen. I mean, I feel like I've done just as good of a job. I'd say in the last 2 months he's been definitely one of the better ones, but he does overpost, I'd say. Maybe this is the guy that did the good call. Yes. Okay, Wolf's Journey. This is something I found on my own. So he put it 12,000 here and 44k here. There's a 20x from him and like just less than a 20x from my admin who showed that same play in the private group. Seems decent sometimes. Kind of like an under the radar gem that I'm still trying to figure out right now. Hatori I think is very good. He does better research than I think almost every channel does. A lot of his plays, like long term, especially the ones he like preaches about, they do well. I've gotten a few calls from here. He called hamsters at 100k and was like one of the first people pushing it pretty hard. Probably one of my favorites recently. Ryoshi Gamble, once again high risk, but you might catch something. You gotta filter. People said Jamie's Cave was pretty good. I did notice he called Toshi on his page. I think he was one of the first to call that. So that was like a 200x call on the base chain. Maythous is pretty solid. Like every team goes to him. He'll be able to get some alphas earlier than other callers. Dream calls. 1 month ago to 3 months ago, I think he was like one of the best. Lately, it seems like he hasn't posted as much, but he does pretty good research. Gets in some pretty good groups, and you'll notice like a lot of the times he's pushing a play hard or mentioning it a lot, it'll do pretty well long term. He's got a pretty good eye for like higher cap plays and longer term plays that not a lot of people have their eyes on. Civilian, he's one of my admins as well. I've been talking about him for a while. He's kind of undervalued, but I think he does a pretty good job for sure. He's newer than other people and he hasn't had as much attention and like learned the ropes as much as of us, but maybe he does more research and is a little more diligent than us. I'm still following this. He doesn't post much, but I feel like he had potential, and if he comes back and gets on a little bit of a roll, he might do alright. Gubbin's more BSC oriented lately, but he does have some good Asian teams that like him and want to work with him. More the degen side, but he can be alright sometimes. This dude doesn't post a lot. He was pretty good when I first started following him, and then he made his own project and it did pretty well. So I was pretty pretty excited by this guy. He always calls like really high cap plays, like 200, 300k is like the absolute lowest. And some of them are just like way too pre-pumped and don't really have much potential, and they're just kind of scary charts to buy. But he recently came back and posted wager after like being very inactive on calling. I ended up taking that call, putting it on Kobe's, because not only did I see it on his channel, I saw it in like a private group or two. I think I called on Kobe's like here, so 2x, 2.5x potential on a medium cap play. Obito's okay, he's a base guy at least. Apparently all his good plays are on Twitter though, because constantly talking about his Twitter ones, and his TG ones have been just like meh. I'm just saying they're like meh for like someone who's like adored as much as him. He's still pretty good, obviously. Sapphire has too many admins posting like paid calls to like sell out and make money. Amongst all the spamming and the shit, there are some good plays in here sometimes. You just kind of have to look at who's calling it and what they're saying. Like I know when it's Sapphire. Kobe's Gambles, I mean obviously I have admin here. I would never sleep on it. Lots of times when I'm too scared to post on my page, or maybe I've posted too many plays that day on my page, and I don't want people to just hop from one to the next, so I'll throw it on Kobe's. When I'm more unsure about a play, I'll put it on Kobe's Gambles, because they're expected that it's going to be like a little more degen. Kobe hits some good ones of his own, even without me. He's gotten in some really good streaks and just like never gets the credit. I feel like he's basically like me. I remember at the start of the year, he was kind of struggling with his channel, one of my helps, so I announced I'm going to go work for Kobe, or with him. I'm going to be posting there, helping him, and I started like just calling bangers. So then he got confident. He started posting a little more. And then he hit some bangers, and like between the two of us made Kobe's Gambles one of the hottest channels in the space. Sometimes they got the respect it deserved and people were buying the calls like crazy, and then other times there'd be like no buys, and I'm just like, he's been pretty solid long term. And then on his main page, I'm not even allowed to type, as you can see, so that's been all him. He's had some good ones on the main as well. I feel like every now and then he takes a paid call without doing the research that I would do. For all the other channels that get hype and get people following them, I think he's a little bit undervalued. And then Hodlers, I like Hodler, he's a nice guy. He has like his own network of safe teams and devs and stuff. It's more on the degen side, but he has hit a couple higher market cap moonshots as well. I'd say like the safest and my favorites would probably be, I'd say Kobe's two pages are pretty damn decent. Sapphire, when you know who's posting. Civilian, I'd say yeah, just barely. Dream Calls is pretty up there. Maythous can be pretty up there. You gotta filter it. You gotta make sure like what he's saying, like Ape 1.5 and above is a pretty good sign. Hatori I'd say is like pretty up there. This guy seems like he could be like maybe on the low side up there. Pow's like pretty decent. Landon's pretty decent. Venom's two pages obviously is up there for me. Dylan's pretty up there for me. Shyroshi's pretty up there for me. Might as well give you guys like as much info as I can on like each caller. And anyone that asks me that question and wants my serious response, like that's what I would tell them if I was going super in depth.